to have you with us on this edition of the Urban Debate. Viewers, tonight we are going to focus on the biggest stories, the 5 big stories here at 8 p.m. And I want to begin this show by speaking about what's happening in the northeast, especially in the state of Assam. In fact, Assam and Bihar both have been ravaged by floods in the last few days, and we've been bringing to you the reports. But here is the extent of impact and destruction that we've seen so far in Assam. Over 59 lives have been lost. 30 districts of Assam are reeling under the impact of the floods. Over 20 lakh animals, 30 lakh poultry has been affected. Even the Kaziranga National Park, in fact, right now is almost 80% submerged. There is flooding inside the national park. 66 animals have died, and forest officials are working round the clock to save the animals and take them to better shelter locations. Over 4,600 villages have been impacted. 1.2 lakh hectares of crop area has been affected. In all, if you see between these villages in these 30 districts, about 32 lakh population has been affected with the floods that have gone on. Over 44,000 have actually been moved. There are about 520 relief camps that have these 44,000 people staying in these relief camps for shelter. Over 270 rescue boats have also been deployed, and it's non-stop work that is going on. Unfortunately, in Assam, viewers, this has now become an annual incident that takes place where lakhs are impacted, thousands are moved, evacuated, forced to live in shelter homes. Animals, wildlife, poultry, even your environment, even your farm fields, all of that gets impacted. And every year, people in this state have to go through this horror. Let me actually first bring you a ground report that Arindam got for us today on what the situation was, and then in fact Arindam will also be joining us live to give us a summary of what's been happening and the rescue efforts.
28 out of the 33 districts of Assam are right now reeling under floodwaters. Over 33 lakh people in these 28 districts are displaced, and more than 40,000 people are taking shelter in the various relief camps set up by the respective district administration. Even as we speak, the teams from NDRF, SDRF, Circle Office as well as Inland Water Transport Department are carrying out rescue and relief operations in various flood-ravaged parts of Assam. In fact, last night also a team from NDRF successfully carried out a late night under dark rescue operation in Borpeta district of Assam, which is one of the worst affected areas by this wave of flood, where they have successfully rescued 103 people who were marooned on a remote island in Borpeta district. And right now also the various teams of NDRF, SDRF and Circle Office personnel are carrying out rescue and relief operations in the state. And now the Met Department has predicted more rainfall in the days ahead, so this does not augur well for this flood-ravaged state of Assam, because the people of Assam was just witnessing a silver lining in the flood scenario, which the state was witnessing the second wave of flood when there was a marginal improvement in the flood scenario. But in the past few days there has been excessive rainfall, not only in Assam but also in neighboring state of Arunachal Pradesh, which has deteriorated the conditions further. And right now also the Met Department has predicted more rainfall, and as you can see, there seems to be no end to the miseries of the flood affected people in Assam. Not only the human settlement, the flood has also ravaged the various national parks and wildlife sanctuaries across Assam. The world-famous Kaziranga National Park is right now 95% underwater, which has killed 51 wild animals, while 102 have been rescued successfully.
In fact, Arindam is joining us live right now. Arindam, as we speak, what's the situation? Has there been any respite? And what are the villages or districts which are still badly hit?
Well, you see, there is no improvement in the overall flood scenario in Assam, according to the latest bulletin issued by the Assam State Disaster Management Authority. Right now, around 36 lakh people are affected in 26 districts of the state. So the entire state of Assam, bearing the hill districts, are right now under flood water, and more than 50,000 people are taking shelter in various relief camps opened up by the district administration. and there seems to be no end to the miseries of the flood affected people because most of these people had to flee their homes when flash floods created havoc in their villages. They could not save anything from their house. They only fled with their lives. And even if the flood scenario improves, the things are not going to be as it was before for these flood affected people, because when they will be going back to their villages, it will be a scene of devastation that will be awaiting for them. Their houses are damaged, agricultural lands under siltation, and also their animal and domestic animals and poultry washed away. Right now, teams from NDRF, SDRF, Circle Office, and Inland Water Transport Department are carrying out rescue and relief operations in various flood-affected people of Assam. And we have come to know that around 4,000 people are rescued in the last 24 hours, which includes a very challenging rescue operation which was carried out last night. It was challenging in the sense that it's very difficult for any of the rescue teams to conduct operations during the night hours, and these um, uh, personnel from the NDRF, braving all odds, using only GPS devices, were able to locate 103 people marooned on a highland, and the floodwater was rising very fast, and there was an SOS call from these people that they need to be saved immediately. So the NDRF personnel, 22 personnel from the 1st Battalion of NDRF, took this call and they reached out to these people, which includes women and children also, and they were successfully brought back to higher ground. So the overall flood scenario in Assam remains unchanged because the Met Department has also predicted more rainfall in the coming days. So as I have mentioned, that the entire state of Assam right now, bearing only the hill districts of the state, are underwater. And not only human settlement, flood has also affected the various national park wildlife sanctuaries in Assam. The world famous Kaziranga National Park is 95% underwater, claiming the lives of more than 50 wild animals, while over 100 have been successfully rescued, which includes rhinos, Royal Bengal tigers, and other animals and birds. And in fact, other parks like the Pobitora Wildlife Sanctuary, which also houses the world famous one horned rhino in the outskirts of Guwahati, is also 95% underwater. 12 out of the 20 camps are right now under flood waters. Similarly, the Orang National Park is also 80% underwater. So, apart from flood causing devastation to the human settlement, flood has also created havoc in the various national parks and wildlife sanctuaries across Assam. And as I had mentioned, the situation remains unchanged right now, and the Met Department has predicted more rainfall in the days ahead, and which might worsen the flood scenario in Assam further.
Arindam, let me actually specifically ask you about what's happening in Kaziranga, because we've got some really heartbreaking visuals coming in, and I remember this was also what we saw last year. Equally bad scenes. What's the level of preparation that the authorities have there now that it's becoming a regular event? Do they need additional help? Have all the animals now been moved to safer locations?
Well, you see, a flood is a boon as well as a bane for the Kaziranga National Park and other wildlife sanctuaries in Assam. Boon in the sense that it helps to maintain the ecological balance of the flora and fauna in the park. But the other side is very sad because it destructs the entire park, where, as I have mentioned, that 95% of the park is right now underwater. So the animals are fleeing the flood affected zones to the higher grounds wherever possible. And the National Highway 37 passes through Kaziranga National Park, which also poses a great danger to the animals right now crossing the highway in search of higher grounds. In fact, there are many casualties also of wild animals, especially hog deers, who are run over by speeding vehicles. In fact, to prevent that, the Kaziranga Park authorities have implemented the time card that no vehicle can cross stretch of National Highway 37 passing through Kaziranga National Park over 40 km per hour speed, but that is not helping much because many animals are killed by speeding vehicles. And yesterday, the concerned authorities had to close the highway, not only because the animals are crossing the highway, but flood waters are overtopping the highway at several places. So the entire highway is right now closed down for vehicular traffic, and most of the forest ranger camps are right now underwater, and it is a challenging task faced by the forest rangers and the park authorities to tackle with this current flood scenario.
Okay, stay on with me, Arindam. I'm going to come back to you in just a bit. I just also want to highlight to the viewers the 10 worst hit districts and the extent of the spread across the state of Assam when it comes to these districts that have been badly hit by the floods. There is Barpeta, Dhubri, Morigaon, Hojai, Dhemaji, Lakhimpur, Biswanath, Sonitpur, Udalgiri and Darrang. Now, while 30 districts have been affected by the floods, these are the 10 districts that have been really badly impacted, and of course rescue operations are still going on. Arindam, is there also a concern that during times of a pandemic it becomes even more difficult because people in large numbers are being evacuated, shifted to shelter homes? It becomes very difficult in shelter homes to take care of social distancing and isolation and screening. What is the government doing on that front? Are they screening people at these shelter homes?
Yes, flood, erosion and landslide is a perennial problem faced by the state of Assam every year. And this time, Assam is fighting two wars at the same time. One is with the pandemic COVID-19 and the other is the flood scenario. Let me tell you that the various rescue teams, the NDRF, SDRF personnel who are right now going to the field to rescue people or provide relief materials, they are right now wearing two life jackets. One is to prevent them from drowning and the other is the PPE kit prevent them from contaminating the deadly coronavirus. Even when they go to rescue people, they are also turning out to be COVID warriors because they are carrying with them infrared thermometers, checking any symptoms from the people who are being rescued. So definitely this is a challenging task for the various rescue teams as well as the government and the concerned authorities are dealing with the flood scenario because as I have mentioned, over 35 lakh people are displaced and around 50,000 people are taking shelter in the various relief camps. So social distancing, maintaining social distancing in those relief camps and also among the flood affected people is a very challenging task. So Assam is fighting at two-pronged battle this time. One is the annual flood, erosion and landslide problem and the other is the pandemic COVID-19.
All right, Arindam, thanks so much for joining us and bringing us all of those updates, keeping a very close track of the situation there and the way the rescue operations are being carried out. Like Arindam was also pointing out, it's become an annual, incident, an annual disaster that takes place at a very large scale in the state of Assam. And unfortunately, we're not able to, still be prepared to the extent to minimize the damage. But once again, authorities now are on the ground trying to help people as much as they can. Thanks, Arindam, for joining us. Well, moving on and getting you story number 2 here on the 8 p.m. Urban Debate. And viewers, this one is an extremely interesting story. Even Mirana is the only one that's got all of the details. This is a story about fake followers on social media platforms and how it's become such a big racket, where lakhs and lakhs of fake followers are created and generated and then sold to whoever wants to pay money to sound and show as if they have a large number of followers. It's become like an organized business. There are over 100 portals that have already been flagged off, and Mumbai police is now investigating this case. So even though many of us would have known that this is a large problem, even though we've seen social media platforms like Twitter, go on a cleanup exercise frequently to get rid of these fake followers, fake profiles, the bots that are used. This is now perhaps the first time here we are seeing where a police investigation will be carried out. Now, to get you all of those details and to explain to you what's going on here on the Urban Debate, I want to first go across to Santya Gora, who got the story for us, and then we'll also have Tarun Wig. He's the information security consultant and co-founder of Inefu Labs, who's joining us this evening. But first up, Santya, to you. Tell us, how did this come to light? Because this is the first time we're actually seeing a proper organized investigation by a police department at such a large scale. How did the investigation get triggered?
Tanvi, a playback singer called Bhumi Trivedi, she got to know that somebody made a fake profile of hers, and somebody did two things. First, used a fake profile, and second, quoted himself as someone who is managing media account and claimed that he has increased Bhumi Trivedi's followers, and he actually contacted choreographers and makeup artists and other people in the industry. Choreographer actually also fell for the trap. He paid a certain amount to this particular person, the accused, because he was thinking how he can increase everyone's social media followers the way he has done with Bhumi Trivedi. So this choreographer paid without knowing that he was actually talking about fake followers. And then when nothing happened, he actually contacted Bhumi just to cross-check. And then he realized, because Bhumi told him that this is not the person who is managing her social media accounts, and she has never paid for any fake followers or followers for that matter. And then Bhumi actually, Tanvi, she contacted Mumbai police, and Mumbai police started investigating the case. Little did the force also know that how exactly this was just the tip of the iceberg, and it was there are many rackets involved here which actually sell not only fake followers but many activities, fake social media activities which includes like, views, subscribers, subscriptions, retweets, comments, and other activities on social media platforms. Tanvi.
Okay, so let's now talk about what it is that the Mumbai police has found so far, which way is their investigation, headed, and the scale of it, Santya, because it's not just one or two small little, people or portals who are doing it. We understand that over 100 portals may actually be doing this like a proper, legit business of some kind.
Yes, absolutely, Tanvi, and this is the list Mumbai police has as of now. There are, according to Mumbai police, many more such portals which are indulged into this. Out of these 100 portals, Tanvi, there is a list. Mumbai police has actually identified 54 portals, and all these 54 portals, most of them are either based internationally or have some connection with international portals. That's exactly why these 54 portals do not accept currency or any other currency for that matter. They deal in US dollars. Now, talking about how organized this whole racket, these whole rackets are, there is a proper rate chart. There are packages. For example, if we go for different services and there are different packages, similarly, here is the case. So packages include, for example, if somebody has to just buy the likes, there's a package for that also. And a simple like, for example, a simple like on Instagram costs $2.33 US, and the minimum in likes in that package is 20, and it goes as high as 10,000 to 20,000. So minimum one person has to buy at least 20 likes, and again these are fake likes. Similarly, there are packages which comprises, for example, if I talk about Twitter, Tanvi. So for example, if somebody wants to buy a Twitter package, that will include likes, that will include retweets, that will include retweet with comment. And again, talking about comments as well. So if it is a very flattering comment, that obviously will have higher price. And if it is a modest sort of a comment, then that will also have that will comparatively will be less expensive. This is how organized it is. A proper rate card is there. And these companies, these portals also have resellers. So they also outsource their work. They have resellers, and the accused who was arrested by Mumbai police was actually reseller of one such company. He in a bulk bought a whole package, and then he started reselling that package to other people here. And in fact, Mumbai police believes that there are many celebrities, Bollywood celebrities, public celebrities, and sports celebrities who have bought such fake followers, and it is actually an offensible. It is a offensive, Tanvi.
All right, Sandhya, thank you so much for bringing us this story and really explaining it in detail, breaking it down for us. Let me also bring in our expert, Tarun Vig is with me. Tarun, this seems like a large-scale racket that's been going on. As far as a criminal action is concerned, to what extent can it be done? We have always heard about social media platforms cleaning up and filtering out, but the fact that this time the police is involved is interesting.
See, if you look at the offense that he has done, the offense is not generating fake followers or fake likes. The offense is that he was impersonating some other profile. So he had actually created a fake profile of an individual who complained to the police. That was the offense. As of now, the IT Act in India does not have any clause of punishing people who are creating fake likes, fake followers, and it is, as you mentioned a minute back, this is a huge ecosystem that we are talking about. It is not just Bollywood actors who are using these services. It is also political parties which are using it. It is nation states which are using it, right? You recently must have read the report where Twitter removed 23,000 of such profiles, of Twitter, who were trying to influence the Black Lives Matter campaign in US, right? And they were being run by China. So it is nation states who have jumped into it big time as well, right? It is not. It's an entire ecosystem, and as of now, there is no law to punish, for these activities.
Yes, in fact, I was going to ask you that legally speaking, is there anything in the Information Technology Act that can be used? Obviously, one aspect in this specific complaint that was filed is that a singer's fake profile was created without even her knowing, and then the scamster here used that fake profile and fake followers there to grow his business. So there is perhaps a case of cheating to be made over there. But otherwise, if these portals that run under the garb of digital marketing and helping you increase your followers, but actually create these fake followers, can there really be a legal action against them?
As of now, no. Should there be one? Definitely yes. Because this particular activity, see what these people do, they will create a fake profile of a celebrity. And we saw that in the Islamophobia campaign in India, where the Omani princess fake Twitter profile was created overnight in Pakistan. They got, millions of followers to follow that profile, and they tweeted something against India, right? And that could have actually damaged the relationship or the reputation of our country in front of so many people in the Middle East, right? So as of now, there is no law for managing these activities. In US, the president Donald Trump, he actually threatened Twitter. He said that whatever is being published on your platform, I will hold you legally responsible for that. There is no law for it. He actually threatened to bring a law for it. The moment he did that, within 2 weeks, we saw that Twitter removed 23,000 Chinese bots, which were spreading malicious activities. In India, we have suffered, where Pakistan, we have seen bots being run in Pakistan, multiple fake profile, fake followers, fake like campaign being done by Pakistan to demonize our country. As of now, there is absolutely nothing that we can do to legally punish these people. As I mentioned earlier, this is being used by political parties as well. There was a big hue and cry a year or so back when suddenly the Twitter profile of Rahul Gandhi got multiple followers from one of the countries, Kazakhstan, if I'm not wrong. So as of now, we really can't take an action on any of these activities. It is very difficult to even identify these perpetrators, right? Having said that, sooner or later, the social media platforms, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, would have to be held accountable for all the content that is being published or promoted on these platforms.
In fact, we're given to understand, Tarun, and maybe you can shed more light on it. Of course, a lot of this gets talked about when it comes to Twitter. But on Instagram, it's actually becoming a larger problem now. In fact, there are reports that suggest that Instagram has even reported losses because of these fake followers. And once they've gone for a cleanup, how practical is it? And in fact, just to answer that question, I think the first question will be, how widespread is this problem? Celebrities, writers, leaders, politicians, is everybody really using this method?
Literally everybody. If you look at the ecosystem, your reporter was just mentioning the rate card, right? So for Twitter, if I want to buy 100 retweets per day, over a course of a month, the package would cost me somewhere around 30 to 40,000 rupees. Right, and that we are talking about 100 retweets per day. That's the kind of money that we are talking about, right? So this is an entire ecosystem which is being used. As I mentioned earlier, you have all kind of celebrities using it, right? Today, everybody wants to become famous on Instagram or YouTube or TikTok, for that matter. If you get X number of views on your video, they actually end up paying you money. I remember the rate on TikTok was that for 1,000 views on a video, you get 5 rupees. Right, and YouTube also has similar rate card for generating it. As a result, what has happened is that a lot of these people have gone to these companies, and these companies have created fake profiles, fake bots, fake Twitter handles, and so on. And these people are now selling their services to budding politicians, to political parties. You see, you usually come across Twitter trends, right? So today, with a massive army that has been created, you can create any trend. You can actually create a trend on the sun rises in the west, and that will be trending on Twitter, because Twitter is not taking any action and removing these bots. Plus, as you mentioned, now we are moving to a situation where nation states have started using social media to influence the opinions in some other country, in the neighboring country or a hostile nation. As a result, this is now a situation is going out of hand. Today, every person, from a businessman to a celebrity to a politician to even a goon for that matter, is trying to increase his followers on social media. Being a celebrity on social media is a new thing now.
So how do these platforms then decide about, or even brands decide about influencers, if we don't know what percentage of their followers are real or fake, and they're all buying it off some of these portals? Then how do brands get into deals with them, even for paid sponsorships?
That's a very important question, but there is literally no way. I mean, there is, of course, you can keep monitoring social media to identify that these are fake bots and so on, and companies do that. We do that for that matter. When we bust a campaign that being done from Pakistan to identify that these are fake bots among all the followers. So people do that, but in most of the cases, these brands are just looking at the number of impressions. And if an influencer goes up to them and tells them that I have 5 million followers, they say, that's it, we want to go ahead with this guy. He has got 5 million followers, even if half of them are genuine, or even if 1/3 of them are genuine. That's enough impression to take care of it, right? And this is where people are earning money now. This is a situation, when you mentioned the losses on Instagram, actually happened because, in the Instagram, with more number of views, you get money. So if a guy who has a lot of followers on Instagram, if he creates an Instagram post, and he gets a lot of likes, he actually gets money from Instagram. So it's an entire ecosystem which has been created, and the brands who are working with these influencers, they really have no way to figure out how much of that influence or impression is genuine and how much of that has been just generated.
All right, Tarunvik, thank you so much for joining us and really putting it in perspective, helping us understand. Of course, a lot of conversation has always happened about paid tweets and retweets and followers, but this is the first time we're actually seeing a criminal investigation, a case of a cheating, and a special investigative team that has been set up by the Mumbai police. Perhaps this could be the turning point, when it comes to the fake followers racket, and this could actually be where we see a significant change even in the social media platforms. Like Tarun said, right now it's pretty much impossible, even for these platforms. They aren't even doing enough to keep cleaning it up, but at some point we will have to start looking at making it clear who's a genuine follower and who's just a fake profile. For now, suffice to say that the Mumbai police is investigating, and what they have also found from the man that they arrested, who's confessed that several celebrities did go to these portals and approach him and buy lakhs of fake followers for their social media profiles. So next time you see that number, take it with a pinch of salt. That's all I can say. Let's move on. Tarun Baig, thanks so much for joining us. Let's move on and go on to our story number 3 here on the Urban Debate. And this is where we get you the latest in the death case of the BJP MLA Debnath Roy, where the CID has now arrested one person. Now, this person, Niloy Singh, was actually known to the BJP MLA. His name was allegedly in that suicide note that was found by the police. There was a note in the shirt pocket of the BJP MLA Debendra Nath Roy, and in that note he has allegedly named Niloy Singh. Not only that, we also are given to understand that even the BJP MLA, the late BJP MLA's wife, has told the police about Niloy Singh, and that is why he has been arrested. But what is interesting is, viewers, it began with the Bengal police telling us that this is a case of a suicide. Prelim investigation shows that. They've even found a suicide letter. But they have now arrested this man allegedly on charges of a murder. And that's the interesting part. That's the turning point that we're seeing right now. Of course, outside of that, this has led to a big war of words between the BJP and the TMC. But preliminary investigation shows that Niloy Singh actually was very close to Debendra Nath Roy. He even lived with him for about 5 years. This is what the Times of India has just reported. They were in business together. They had some financial transactions that they had done between them. And so there could be many reasons that only the police can tell us at this point that could have led to this death. Whether it was a suicide with abetment to suicide case or a murder case. That's what the CID is investigating right now. Let's say good evening to the panelists who are joining us, because I want to understand why is this a political fight even before the investigation details are out. So let's say good evening to Professor Monojit Mandal of the TMC. He's a TMC supporter who's joining us right now. And I've also got Priyanka Tibrewal, spokesperson for the BJP in West Bengal, who's with us this evening. Priyanka, let's begin with you. Why is BJP so sure that there is some foul play and this is a political killing?
See, this is not the first time, first of all, good evening, and this is not the first time that we are experiencing something such heinous, so heinous like this. In the past 4 years, there have been more than 100 murders and more than 100 killings of BJP workers. So this is absolutely not the first time. That the police has also said this before investigation, that this is a suicide. The same happened in Purolia's Balarampur, where Dulal Kumar was hanged till death, and it was said it is a suicide without investigation. Another episode which happened was also in Purulia Balarampur, where Trilochan Mahato, one of our workers, was murdered, killed and hanged. But even then they said it's a suicide, although it was completely clear at that point of time when his body was hanging, because it was written on his shirts that you are being killed because you were doing BJP. But even then they said that was a suicide. The investigation is still on and on and on. No convictions up till now. 4 years, 2 years, 3 years passed by. But we don't see any convictions. So the picture is absolutely true and clear that even the police and administration are hand in hand. They very well know who is responsible for these killings, these inhuman killings, but they never come out with convictions. So that is the fact. So we are very, very sure that even in this case, you see, this is just a eye brush, which is what paint which they are wanting to throw in front of our eyes. Because at the moment, everyone, each and every one is shouting that this kind of behavior, this kind of killings will not be tolerated in Bengal. So just to give an eye wash, they have arrested someone. They are saying that the investigation will go on. But you see, I am also here, you are also here. No conviction will happen in this case also. Because we very well know who is involved.
No, but here is what
and the worst of all is that the CM,
which is that the wife. One minute, Priyanka. Let's take it point by point. Let's look at the facts that are available right now, and you tell me if there are other facts that the BJP has that tells a different story. The police has found a suicide note. The suicide note allegedly names this man, Niloy Singh, along with another person who has been named in this letter. Let's not even call it a suicide note. Let's just say that in this letter that has been left behind by the BJP MLA, there are two names that have been mentioned. Now, one of them is Niloy Singh, the other is Mahbud Ali. Now, the wife has also mentioned these names to the police in her statement. Investigation shows that Niloy Singh was working very closely, lived with Debendranath Roy for almost 5 years. They are in similar, cooperative businesses as well. There were financial transactions between them. So,
Yes.
these are the facts that we know of right now. What is it that we don't know that makes BJP believe there is something else going on?
See, I'll tell you first of all, the very first thing, that even if the note was there, before that only the police has declared that it was a suicide. How can you say you are in a responsible position without investigation? How could you even say suicide? And on the very second day that it becomes that yes, we found a note or something, investigate first. Come to conclusions later. And it is not that only these two persons, maybe the story is little larger. But then they will want to draw a line, which they always do. And that is why I am telling you that in no cases we never find that there is any kind of a conclusion which they reach to. Whenever you go and ask for a CBI probe, we don't get a CBI probe.
Let
Why?
me get in.
Even if the CID, even if the police, they want to
Let me
come and
actually
catch hold of
bring in-
people, why don't they allow us to do that?
Let me bring in Professor Mondal on this. Professor Mondal, again, the same question that I asked the BJP, I ask of you. Are we jumping the gun on this case without really carrying out a proper investigation, dismissing one or the other theory about what it could have been?
No, it's not the question of theories, Bhargavi. I mean, who do you trust? If you don't trust the police, you don't trust the doctors who are making the postmortem with all kinds of scientific evidences, videography, whom do you trust? The question is, the BJP people in Bengal especially, they are always looking for dead bodies to bring politics. You remember what were they talking about when they were, the COVID people, the dead bodies are not being taken by their own relatives? It is the BJP who are making the complaints, not the people, not the family members of the deceased. So it's nothing new for us that the BJP is in a sense, habituated with the politics of the dead bodies in Bengal especially. We are extremely serious about this case, and that's why investigation has already started on all fronts, including the fronts on regarding the cooperative bank issues. There has been money transaction of more than 2.5 crores. This person was involved in the particular transaction, and other persons who are involved in that particular illegal transaction, they are also being traced. One person has already been arrested. And today, Mr. Derek O'Brien, the honorable MP of the TMC, he has submitted all the requisite documents to the president. And yet, the BJP, in order to malign the state of Bengal and the people of Bengal, they'll make this, a hullabulla. Even if there is a suicide, even if it's a scientifically proven case of suicide by the doctors themselves, they will continue to do this because they need to make politics out of dead bodies, let me tell you. And yes, the person on the other side, the person in question on the other side, let me remind her of the fact that the police did not on the first, it's a case of suicide. Crime of SI. Madam, you must verify the expression prima facie. Prima facie, it appears to be a suicide. That was the version of the police. Police did not categorically say that it's a case of suicide. And why did the police prima facie? Because there was a suicide note which was this
So
is
what is it now, Professor Mandal? It's a murder case now? It's not suicide?
No. First of all, later amend herself. The statement she has made on your channel right now, saying that the police said that it's a case of suicide, while the police did not. She can't make this kind of irresponsible statement by misquoting the police. Police is not political pawns. Police doesn't act on at the behest of the political parties.
In that case, tell me what is responsibility and what is irresponsibility. We have seen the responsibility of your chief minister. We have witnessed the responsibility of your chief minister. She's so responsible that she can
This is
do
not a
it.
noise.
1 minute, please. I don't want yelling on this show. One minute. I don't want yelling on this show. Priyanka, and Professor Mandal, Priyanka Tibrewal and Professor Mandal, please hold on. No shouting over each other. This is not that kind of a show. Professor Mandal, explain to me now. We've been very confused all day long. A case for suicide was filed. We were told prima facie it is a case of suicide. There is a suicide letter that has been found. The police has repeatedly said this. But the man who's been arrested has been arrested on charges of murder. So is this a case of murder now? Can you clarify to us?
Nobody is saying this. Nobody has come to a conclusion, right? Nobody has come to a conclusion. What I'm trying to say that I was trying to refute her statement. When she was misquoting the police, she misquoted the police by saying that police has said that this is a case of suicide. Police, on the other hand, not just police. Yesterday, please see the press conference by the Home Minister. The Home Minister has categorically said in Bengali, in the vernacular, that all angles are being probed into. Nobody should jump into any kind of conclusion. Yes, prima facie, the police has said, because there was a suicide note. Prima facie doesn't mean that it is the conclusive evidence or it is the conclusive thing. Yes, investigation is still on. The police will come to a kind of conclusion. Let me tell you this. The other angles are there. The financial angles are there. Whether these persons was involved in any kind of illegal transaction, the bank fraud is there. All these angles.
Now let me quickly get a response.
But why these people are jumping into the gun? Why these people are making politics right now? They should wait till the investigation is over. At least they should wait till 7 days, 10 days.
Let me come, Mr. Monojit, if you are through.
Okay.
Yes.
Professor Mandal,
So,
let
Mr.
Priyanka
Monojit
Tibrewal
tends to
respond
forget,
now.
and even
Priyanka,
the TMC
yes.
tends to forget that after every sunset there is a sunrise, which TMC tends to forget. The CPM saw the sunrise in 2011 and it's time for TMC to see it in 2021. Well, to what the Home Minister and the police said, that do not jump to speculative and biased judgmental conclusions. But you tell us something, we wait for 4 years, we wait for 2 years, we wait for the investigation to get over. But about 100 murders, no conclusion. We are still waiting. I just speak about one incident and I need an answer from Mr. or Professor Monojit Mandal. That what about the case of Tapas Burman and Rajesh Sarkar of Islampur? What is the conviction? What happened? They did not cremate the bodies. They were waiting for a CBI probe. They were waiting from the police to come to some kind of a conclusion. But we find none. So please do not tell me about the speculations of not being judgmental. It is not me or the BJP or the people of BJP. It is the people of Bengal who come to these conclusions because they see that they don't find anything from you. As correctly said, I would just quote and try to finish that Vinash Kale Vipareet Buddhi. I translate because maybe you would not understand. Your doom approaches and whenever it does, your intelligence works against. So that is what is happening with TMC. Your intelligence is working against your interest because the doom is approaching soon. So you will have to answer to the people of West Bengal. And as you said that we are happy with the dead bodies, so you are happy killing them. TMC is killing them for their own political vandalism which is going on here in West Bengal.
Can I answer?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Can I answer?
Yes, Mr. Manojit, go ahead.
I am quiet.
Yes.
Please do.
You see, Tanvi, why Desdemona was punished because handkerchief was found in Cassio's chamber. That's why Othello killed Desdemona. Doesn't mean that Desdemona is guilty. The kind of analogy she is bringing, because this happened during the time of the left-wing regime, sunrise, sundown, sunset. This happened during the time of Alexander the Great. That's why it's happening now. Please, don't bring into this kind of analogy. Yes, political violence takes place in Bengal and both the sides are becoming victims of it. Today only one of our workers is brutally injured and your MP, Mr. Arjun Singh, is accused of attempting to murder. The person is suffering in one of the hospitals in Calcutta and he is struggling to come back, right? So please don't tell us that this is one side. If there is any kind of political violence, TMC is not making politics out of dead bodies. You people are habituated to make politics out of dead bodies, not just this kind of unnatural dead bodies, but also what you did regarding the COVID cases. We all know you people are predicting 1 lakh COVID cases in the month of April. Your national spokesperson, the IT cell head, Mr. Amit Malviya, said the West Bengal government is suppressing data and there are 1 lakh cases. He said this in the month of April on a channel with me in a debate show, right? So you people are predicting doom for us. You predict them wishing death for us. This is not going to happen in Bengal. The people of Bengal are intelligent enough to understand what is what, and they will choose accordingly. And if they need to answer, they will answer in the appropriate time. You don't need to make politics out of dead bodies. It is your problem. You will do it. And yes, if you are unhappy with the investigation, whether it is politics or not, you can go to the High Court and ask for a CBI inquiry. In fact, in many of the cases, you are aware of the fact that you have been to the High Court and you did not get any favorable order from the High Court. Did you? No, because High Court could also understand that the investigation is going on in the right direction. Here also, the state highest investigating agency, the CID, is inquiring and the investigation is going in the right direction. The truth will come out. You are not satisfied? Please, you have the right to go to the High Court. You can go. You have been to the High Court. Nothing has happened because High Court is also convinced about the fact that the state police is acting properly.
Now let's wait and watch. Unfortunately, every time somebody from the BJP dies in the state, it becomes a political war of words rather than delivering justice and actually doing a fair investigation into what happened in that case. Now, BJP says it's because TMC and the West Bengal police don't want to find out and tell us what's happening. On the other hand, Mamata Banerjee says, well, we do a fair investigation and not every case is a case of a political killing. I'm completely out of time, but this is a case we are going to track. It started off with the police telling us that it looks like a case of suicide, that there has been a letter that was found in the BJP MLA's shirt and people who had been named in that letter by the BJP MLA. That's exactly what even the wife said in her statement to the police. But right now, the man who's been arrested has been arrested for murder. So a lot more clarity is needed on which way this investigation is headed, irrespective of the political war of words that's going on. I'm going to take a very short break. Two other big stories lined up on the other side for the 8 p.m. debate. Stay with me. Welcome back. Let me also quickly tell you what's been happening as far as Sachin Pilot's future is concerned and the political crisis that's going on within the Congress party in the state of Rajasthan. Well, Sachin Pilot was earlier supposed to do a news briefing at 10 o'clock and then later on it was moved to the afternoon, but it never happened. All that we know is that he very clearly has stated that he's not intending to join the BJP. But it's been now, 36 hours since the Congress party sacked him of his powers as a cabinet minister in Rajasthan and as the Rajasthan Congress chief, and there has been no clear response right now from Sachin Pilot on what he is going to do next. In fact, in between there were reports that emerged that in one of the NSUI events where Rahul Gandhi was speaking, he said that, those who want to leave will leave, but that's good because it opens up opportunities for younger people. But the Congress then came out with a clarification saying that this comment was taken out of context and this is not what really Rahul Gandhi said. So has Rahul Gandhi completely turned the other way and abandoned Sachin Pilot, or are there still attempts that are being made to get him back? And if they are going to be brought back, if they are going to bring him back with what? That, of course, becomes the big question. Meanwhile, of course, the other angle is, in absence of Sachin Pilot and some of his supporters, is there a danger to Mr. Gehlot's government in Rajasthan? They claim that they have the numbers in place, but that is something that continues to evolve. And Sachin Pilot just a short while ago in the evening also met some of the MLAs who've been hiding in one of the resorts. Vinay Tiwari, managing editor, with me to give us more perspective. Vinay, do you think that it's odd that it's been almost 36 hours since Congress made that big decision and we've not heard from Sachin Pilot on camera?
Yes, so two things are very clear, Tanvi, and one of it is linked to what you just said. There's another one which is also linked to this, and which is this. It's now almost absolutely certain and clear that Sachin Pilot has realized that the card that he played was possibly a bigger card than he should have played. Mr. Ashok Gehlot has absolutely consolidated his position, and I don't see an immediate threat to the Rajasthan government at all. Two big indicators of this. One, Sachin Pilot's scheduled press briefing, which was first scheduled at 10 in the morning and then rescheduled for 1, and then it's not happening at all, was simply because he's realized that the numbers that he had been claiming were not only much less, but also had whittled down further, because there were reports of some of the people who were part of his camp till yesterday had now also left and gone back to Rajasthan. So that is part A. Part B, even the BJP, if you remember, their the state unit heads and other senior leaders also almost kind of confirmed that they will not push for a trust vote in Rajasthan, which is an indicator that they believe that Mr. Gehlot is in a strong position right now, and it will make no sense to actually push for a trust vote. Because if the government was in a precarious situation, or there was any possibility of this being a tighter contest, the BJP would have pushed for a trust vote. So two very clear indicators that Mr. Sachin Pilot's attack on the citadel has failed this time. And I think that is possibly the reason why he's taken a tactical retreat, and in the morning spoke off record to some media houses and suggested that he's not considering joining the BJP. To me, that's a peace overture that he's trying to make. He's trying to hint that he's ready for some kind of a rapprochement between him and the leadership, and that there is still possibility of Sachin Pilot remaining within the Congress, maybe after a cooling off period, and making a return of some sort. Tanvi.
Okay, but you know what I think will make him now think twice is also a very interesting comment that Mr. Gehlot, Ashok Gehlot made. And in fact, he's never been this open. They've always taken jibes at each other, but this time he got really, really personal when it came to Sachin Pilot. Vinay Tiwari, thank you so much for joining us with your perspective. Let me just play out that bite of Mr. Gehlot taking a very sharp jibe at Sachin Pilot.
कोई अच्छा इंग्लिश हिंदी बोलना, अच्छी बाइट देना, वो सब कुछ नहीं होता है। अच्छे हैंडसम पर्सनैलिटी होने सब कुछ नहीं होता है। आपके दिल में क्या है देश के लिए, आपका कमिटमेंट क्या है, आपकी विचारधारा, नीति, कार्यक्रम जो है आपकी पार्टी के, कितना बड़ा कमिटमेंट है आपका, ये सब देखा जाता है आपको। सोने की छुरी पेट में खाने के लिए नहीं होती है, आप समझ गए? सोने की छुरी पेट में खाने के लिए नहीं होती है, समझ जाओ आप लोग।
Speaking good English and having good looks is not going to help you in politics, says Ashok Gehlot a day after that strict action by the Congress against Sachin Pilot. Let's move on and to the fifth big story we've got here on the Urban Debate tonight, and this one is about a story that we've constantly been tracking, a story that would have impacted the future of lakhs of Indian students and other international students studying in United States or even planning to go there. Now, this is what has happened in a significant rethink by the Trump administration. The US government has revoked the visa restrictions that were being planned, obviously bringing a sigh of relief to several students across United States of America. Remember, Trump administration had decided that those who are purely doing online classes will not be allowed to stay on in US any longer and will have to go back to their countries. Either they figure out a way of an online and an offline class combination to justify continue staying in US. Now that visa restriction for the international students actually saw a lot of backlash, and as a result now there has been a change in stand. To help us understand the sequence of events better and how did this really take place, I've got Nick Adelson, the education reporter for the Washington Post, joining us this evening. Nick, thanks for being with us on the Urban Debate. Just take us through the sequence of events first. What pushed the government to change their stand on this issue?
Hi. So thank you for having me. Basically, there was a huge uprising in the United States among colleges and universities across the country. They were all saying, hey, wait a minute, this doesn't make any sense. We have about 1 million international students in the United States. They bring a lot of talent and money to the United States. So why are we potentially evicting them just because of the pandemic and because of the necessity to go online? So there were colleges that sued. As soon as the Trump administration had this order on July 6th, there was talk of lawsuits, and Harvard and MIT two very well-known colleges, filed the first lawsuits, but they were joined by others. And there were suits in the Western United States by Stanford University and others. There were suits from states' attorneys general from the states. They were all saying, hey, this does not comply with the law. It was rushed and it was not well thought out. And so when the very first hearing in the Harvard-MIT case came up yesterday, the judge, very surprisingly, the judge just announced, okay, we have an agreement. The government has decided not to do this. And the hearing lasted a few minutes. The judge read the agreement. The Trump administration's lawyer, who was in the hearing, said, yes, judge, that's correct. And now the policy is back to where it was in March. So I know there was a huge outcry, lawsuits all across the country, and a retreat by the Trump administration.
So would it be correct to say that as things stand today now, there are no concerns for student visas or no concerns for international students who are already there, attending various courses?
Well, I don't think it's safe to say there's no concerns. I think right now the student visa situation is very complex. But yes, if you are a student in the United States now, and if your college plans to go online because of the pandemic, you will not have to leave the country. And all of those students who were in that particular situation, and there were a lot of them, are very relieved today. We talked to many of them yesterday and in previous days who were very worried, and now they're not. As you know, India sends 200,000 students a year to the United States. So this is no small matter for India. China also sends hundreds of thousands of students here, and so does Europe.
Yes, absolutely. In fact, it's a very large number that you said, 200,000, 2 lakh students from India go there every year. And obviously, in the middle of a pandemic, any change in policy would have thrown their entire plan into a chaos, which is why you saw that kind of a backlash from students all over America. Nick Adelson, thank you so much for joining us and bringing us that report.